dad's house and made amends with my dad. And I said, "Hey, man, I'm sorry." And my dad said, "That's the first time I ever seen my dad admit that he was hurt because I didn't go in to talk to him. I didn't. I dropped my brothers and sisters off out in front of his house and wouldn't go inside. I mean, when you're 18, you're like, I'm grown now. I can do what I want, and I wasn't grown worth nothing."
When I think about Hank Aaron, and I had him on when he wrote his book about what that year was like when he
Mm-hmm.
broke the home run record, and we talked at depth about all the things that he went through. But I'm just wondering, what was it about Hank Aaron as an athlete? Because he wasn't a particularly big player, but as I've been told, he had strong wrists
He has strong legs too.
and strong legs too, and
Right.
everything. What did he pass on to Dusty Baker that you never will forget?
Well, probably about um, discipline and also uh, total recall of almost every situation. Because back then there were no scouting reports. Your scouting reports you kept in your head. A guy threw me a slider, then he go follow fastball in and out, boom, boom, and he would always tell me to retain. You may not understand. He'd always ask me, do you understand? And I'd always say, yeah. Not half the time, not a half, about three-quarters of the time, I didn't understand nothing he was talking about. But I'd say, yeah, I understand. But he told me he knew that I didn't understand, so he said, do me a favor. He says, you may not understand what I'm telling you now, but just retain what I'm telling you. And that's always stuck with me to retain what you learn and then, apply it, through muscle memory and retention upon command. And, and this guy, I mean, he knew it was down to the point where he knew uh, if you ate late before the game, then you'd eat pasta or chicken, or if you wanted a steak, you ate early. I mean, he was into nutrition, he was into training. He the only time he drank is if we had an off day the next day, or if there was a night game followed. I mean, night game following a day game. And like I said, he was extremely disciplined, and not only disciplined, but his concentration level was beyond anything I've ever seen until I got to Barry Bonds.
When he hit the breaking home run, breaking Babe Ruth's record, do you have a chance to talk to him about what it actually meant to him? Because usually everybody else has an opinion, but the person who did it, it's the thing that they gleam onto that they'll never forget.
Well, I don't know. He told me that he's going to get it over with right then. And he said he was tired of this. Then he's going to get it over with. I said, okay. And I was on deck. And, he never talked about it. He never bragged about it. I never heard him brag ever.
Yeah.
And, like he didn't like showboating. He didn't like guys cheating on the baseball field. And, he taught us how to be men and how to be a professional and how to conduct yourself with dignity and honor. People, externally he was externally humble, but inside he was internally like probably the most confident guy that you'll ever see. And the more people mess with him, and the more society hurt him, that he would rise even higher in concentration and performance.
We have about a minute 15 before we have to break again. How did you feel about the 1976 trade to the Dodgers?
Well, I loved it. I mean, I asked for the trade, and I said, I'm out of here. And I told Hank, I said, Hank, man, I want to go back to California. I want to win, number one. And number two, man, I just want to go home and play. And so it was a great trade. The only thing is I fell on my face early. I had a terrible start. I hurt my leg playing basketball, of all things. My mother was telling me quit playing basketball, but I had a basketball Jones like Cheech and Chong. I just couldn't stop playing basketball.
Bill Russell was a good friend of mine. I was the broadcaster for the Seattle Supersonics when Bill was the coach up there. Yeah. And it was like my friendship with you. We talked about things. I asked him, why did you never sign an autograph?
I didn't know that.
No, he never signed an autograph. People even tried to give him a check for his charity with the belief that he'd sign it on the back of the check to endorse it. And he said to me, Ron, it's because a person's worth is not their signature. It's the soul. And I thought that was something wonderful.
you
I want to talk more about that in just a second.
Please.
We're going to continue across the country and around the world. And when we come back on the other side, again, as I said, 1976 was a trade from Atlanta, which he requested onto the Los Angeles Dodgers. And when he got there, he got there to a wonderful team. And he had a good friend there, and they are noted, and I'm going to check this out with Dusty. They're noted for something that was created by them. That was the first time, supposedly, it was ever done in baseball. We'll do that as we move across the country and around the world. Good to have you on the American Forces Network and all across the country on America's sports talk show, Sports Byline. Yeah, my talks with Bill, we were in Boston doing the Celtics game, and he always loved beating the Celtics.
He did.
He always loved beating them. And so anyway, there was a mayor running for office, and we're having dinner, after the game. And he comes in and wants to come over and meet Bill. Photographer's there, and he would not let them take any pictures because he says, I'm not saying I'm endorsing you. I mean, that's how definitive he was. Our conversation. And Bill Brown, the running back, Jim Brown, excuse me. Jim Brown was a good friend because we were both born on February 17th, years later. but the type of people in my life like you and him, Roy Eisenhart, of course.
That's who he really likes. That's who he's close with.
Well, Roy does a show with me every Friday called Inside Angle, in which we talk about the deeper aspects.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I had told him, yeah. So, anyway. Okay, here we go. Let me stop this. Stop, reset. Okay, here we go. Dusty Baker is continuing with us here on Sports Byline, talking about his wonderful book. It's called Crossroads. I alluded to it before the break about you going to the Dodgers and, of course, being involved with a teammate, Glenn Burke. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but I have heard that you and Glenn created the first high five.
Well, that's what they say. I think Glenn did it. Everybody gives me credit for it because I was the most known at the time. But I hit my 30th home run off J.R. Richard that Reggie Smith had told J.R. on Thursday in the last series of the year that I was going to hit it off him, which J.R. wasn't pitching until Sunday. And I was the last guy to get the 30th home run. And so after I hit my home run, Glenn Burke was on deck. Well, Glenn threw his hands up. All I did was just reciprocate to Glenn's actions. And so when people ask me, I can't take credit for it. I got to give it to, Glenn Burke. But, earlier you were talking about Bill Russell, and I didn't like the Celtics because they always beat the Lakers. But once I got to meet Bill Russell, I met him through Hank Aaron at a couple banquets. And I asked Bill, which I've always used this, with my teams once I started managing. I asked Bill, what was the secret to the Celtics winning all those championships? He told me that they loved each other, and I was shocked that here's this strong guy, looked like he never smiled, and he was talking about love, and that impressed me so much that I had to keep it. And I asked Bill, was it fine if I use that? And I have that piece of paper that I wrote it on in my briefcase.
You had another friend, and I think he was instrumental to you, and that was Bill Walsh.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the play-by-play announcer at Stanford when Bill was there the first time as the head coach. Mm-hmm. And I was the go-between for Eddie in hiring Bill.
Wow.
And I'll never forget because Eddie had bought the team, 30 years old. They were 3-13 that first season. Mm-hmm. We're having dinner in San Francisco. And he's bemoaning, no, I want Don Shula, I want Chuck Nolan. I said, no, if you go after them, you're going to get a tampering charge. But I said, if you hire Bill Walsh, I promise you 3 Super Bowls.
Come on.
Yes.
Wow.
And the thing about Bill was he was the most unusual person I probably have known from the standpoint that he had an insecurity side of him that drove him to being the great football coach that he was. Now, I'm going to say something to you that I don't know whether you know or not, but he respected and appreciated you as much as anybody he's ever met.
Well, he showed me that. I mean, he showed me that by giving me all his cue cards and all everything that, how he started the 49ers when nobody wanted to be the GM of the 49ers. And at his Last Supper, before that, he would call me over to his house. We have a grease board in front of us, and he was telling me how to handle the media and how to handle this and how to handle that. And I was like, well, why is this guy taking such a liking to me? And then when he had the black coaches that were trying to aspiring to be head coaches, Lovey Smith and Winningham and all these guys. I was the only baseball guy there, and at his Last Supper before he died, it was a luncheon. He had Bill Ring, Dwight Clark, Joe Montana, Eric Wright, and myself, and his secretary. And Bill was like so good to me and taught me so much about life and managing. And another guy in the Bay Area that was very, very instrumental, which I met at the Squaw Valley Warriors basketball camp when I was 16, was Al Addles.
Yes.
And whenever I was tight, I didn't know what to do, whether it was dealing with upper management or dealing with the player. I know that I could call Bill and Al Addles, and I'd always get the right answer.
Well, it's interesting about Bill. He had an insecurity side on him because of what had happened in Cleveland, where he was supposed to get the head coaching job there, didn't get the coaching job down at San Diego. And he didn't get a chance until he was 49 years old to become a head coach. Can you imagine what he might have done if he had gotten a job a lot younger?
Well, that was the same for me. I was
exactly.
45,
That's what
46,
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't know all this. But Bill never talked about Bill. He'd always want to talk about you.
Yeah.
Or something else. He never really wanted to talk about Bill.
Do you remember the moment when you said to yourself, I want to be a baseball manager?
I don't know. First, I didn't want to coach. And Al Rosen is the one that talked me into coaching. And I was getting divorced in L.A. the same way that caused me to go into coaching, the same way that my parents got divorced that caused me to go into playing baseball. And so I wanted, if anything, to be a general manager. And I asked Al that I wanted to be his assistant. He asked me what job did I want. And he goes, I have an assistant. At the time, he had Ralph Nelson. He goes, I think you'd be better suited for the field. And I was like, I took exception to him saying field, and I must have had a look on my face that he recognized. And I said, well, he goes, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. He goes, I think you'd be a great field manager. So, and he said, but it's going to take you 5 years to get the player out of you. And 5 years and 1 day from the time he told me that he hired me was when I was, named a manager. But, from being the oldest kid, from being in the Marines in charge of the platoon and being captain of most teams, I did tell Mr. Rosen that I give orders better than I take them.
So true.
So I guess he must have recognized that when he recommended me to be the manager.
Hey, here is a fact, and I'd like to get your reaction to it, Dusty. Dusty Baker has the most wins among African American managers. Mm-hmm. That's a strong statement because you think about Cito Gaston. Mm-hmm. He won 2 World Series, never got another chance. Mm-hmm. But you prevailed. Why?
Well, I was prevailed because I had various people that believed in me and my talent. Because there's no way in my mind that I should have been on 5 different teams. Because I was winning sooner or later in every team I was on, especially when I left Washington. We'd won 95 and 97 games. And, part of it was about, about paying me, which I asked for. And part of it was maybe because I didn't just do everything that I was told to do. But I take some exception to always being called or black manager. When's the day going to come when I'm just a manager? Or when's the day going to come when they can say, hey, man, he was a very good manager. The one thing I don't understand, if I'm that good and if Cito Gaston was that good, then how come other players haven't had an opportunity, to manage?